In our world, beauty is the ultimate currency. To the Demir Pack, Aluna isn't just a wife. She is a beacon of perfection, a warrior who commands the room with a single glance. But what happens when that beacon grows dim? Kaan, a powerful alpha who prides himself on strength and military prestige, has made a cold-blooded decision. He looks at his wife, Selinay, and no longer sees the woman who fought beside him. He sees the scars of a Silverfire attack, jagged, hairless streaks that have replaced her former radiance. He sees a wolf whose shift is sluggish and a woman who hides her face in the shadows. Driven by vanity and the whisperings of a younger, flawless Lycan socialite, Kaan has drafted the ultimate betrayal, a formal decree of rejection. He believes he deserves better. He believes that by discarding his ugly wife, he is saving his pack. But Kaan has lost his wolf sight. He has forgotten that the very scars he loathes are the armor that saved his life. He has forgotten that the moon goddess doesn't just grant a mate for decoration, but for the soul. In this epic few minutes werewolf romance special, we dive into a world of rigid hierarchies, secret training, and the sacred mate bond. You will witness the fall of an arrogant alpha and the rise of a Luna who refuses to be erased. From the high-stakes Council of Wolves to the life-or-death solstice hunt, every scene is a race against time and the poisonous effects of silver. Can a rejected mate reclaim her throne? Can an alpha who watered his home with indifference ever learn to see with love again? Stay tuned until the very end to see Selinay's true form revealed. If you love stories of second chances, powerful Lunas, and high-tension werewolf drama, make sure to like this video and subscribe to wolfpackromance.co. Hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more stories like this. The office was dead silent, save for the rhythmic clicking of Kaan's silver-plated pen. He stared at the documents on the mahogany desk, the ink of the Pack decree practically burning through the paper. Outside, the Demir Pack lands stretched toward the jagged mountains, a territory he had built into an empire. "I can't do it anymore, Dad," Kaan said, his voice flat. He didn't look up as the door creaked open. Baran, the retired Alpha King, stepped into the light. He moved with a heavy grace that age hadn't fully stolen. "Do what, Kaan? Led? Or face the truth?" "Selinay," Kaan snapped, finally looking up. His eyes flashed a dull gold. "She is the Luna of this pack, but she looks like an Omega from a beggar rogue pack. She's changed. The silver fire from the war 3 years ago didn't just scar her skin. It dimmed her wolf." Baran pulled out a chair, his eyes fixed on his son. "She took those scars for you, Kaan. That was a silver bomb aimed at your heart. And I am grateful, truly. But a pack needs a leader they can admire. Look at the women from the Blackstone Pack. Melissa is young. She's sharp. Her wolf is a pure white Lycan strain that commands attention the moment she enters a room. Selinay she lingers in the corners. She's sluggish. I deserve a mate who matches my power." Baran's face remained a mask of stone. "You want to file a formal rejection? I've already drafted the petition to the moon goddess." Kaan pushed the paper toward his father. "I need your signature as the witness of blood. The pack deserves a Luna who can stand beside me during the solstice hunt, not one who limps behind." Baran didn't touch the pen. He stood up slowly, the air in the room shifting as his Lycan aura began to project a heavy, crushing weight of disappointment onto Kaan. "I will come to your home tomorrow," Baran said. "I want to see her myself. If she is truly the ghost you claim she is, I will sign your papers." "She's in the kitchen or the nursery," Kaan muttered, turning back to his window. "That's all she is now." "We will see," Baran replied. "But remember this, the moon goddess gives you a mate to complete your soul, not to decorate your arm." The next morning, the Alpha estate was a blur of motion. Selinay moved through the halls with a quiet, frantic energy. She wore a simple, oversized sweater that hid the jagged silver burns across her shoulders and back. To anyone else, she looked like a tired mother. To Kaan, she looked like a failure of rank. "Selinay, where is the report for the Gamma's hunting party?" Kaan barked from the top of the stairs. Selinay didn't flinch. She balanced a crying toddler on her hip while handing a tablet to a waiting messenger with her free hand. "It's on your desk, Kaan. I also updated the training schedules for the Epsilons. They need more endurance work." "I didn't ask for your input on the middle ranks," Kaan said, his voice dripping with indifference. "Just do the coffee. Baran is here." Baran watched from the doorway as Selinay moved. "Selinay," he called out. He found her in the garden, sitting under the moonlight. She was crying, her shoulders shaking as she clutched a small silver locket, the only thing he had ever given her. "Selinay, Kaan started. She stood up, wiping her eyes. Her face was pale. "You don't have to say it, Kaan. I felt the bond fraying. I know you saw the Blackstone Alpha today. I'll have my things packed by morning. You won't have to look at me anymore." "Selinay, wait." "No," she said, her voice finally breaking. "If I am too ugly for your pack, then I am too ugly for your heart. The decree is already drafted, Selinay. Don't make this harder than it needs to be," Melissa said, her voice like silk over a blade. Selinay stood in the center of the grand foyer, her hands trembling as she clutched a stack of laundry. Melissa, the high-ranking socialite from the Blackstone Pack, stood by the entrance. She looked like a goddess, her white Lycan fur coat shimmering, a stark contrast to the simple cotton Selinay wore. Melissa moved with the predatory grace of a female born into the upper class, her eyes flashing with a superior light. "The Alpha hasn't signed it yet," Selinay replied, her voice low but steady. "He will," Melissa countered, stepping closer. "Kaan needs a Luna who can lead the military force and train the warriors. Look at you. You can barely shift without wincing. A pack is only as strong as its weakest link, and you, Selinay, are a liability." Selinay felt her wolf, Elara, stir in her mind. Elara was usually silent, suppressed by the silver burns that had damaged their connection during the war. But today the wolf growled. It was a faint, rasping sound, like dry leaves skittering over stone. "Quiet, Elara," Selinay thought. "We are not strong enough for this yet." Melissa laughed, a sharp, cold sound. "I can smell the silver on you from here. It's pathetic. The moon goddess favors the strong, not the broken." She reached out, her long, manicured nails brushing against the scar on Selinay's neck. "Kaan told me everything. He told me how he has to look away when you undress, how the sight of your skin makes his stomach turn." The words felt like a physical blow. Selinay took a step back. She knew she wasn't the warrior she used to be. The silver fire had been a genetic weapon, a silver concentration designed to kill an alpha. She had taken the hit for Kaan, and the poison had settled into her bones, slowing her healing and dimming her aura. "He said that," Selinay whispered. "He said he deserves someone who isn't a reminder of his past failures," Melissa sneered. "Now, be a good little Omega and go prepare the guest suite. I'll be staying here until the solstice ball." Selinay watched as Melissa walked away, her head held high. The injustice of it burned in her throat. She had been the one to stay up through the nights, managing the pack accounts and mediating disputes between the Gammas and the Betas. She had raised the Alpha heir while Kaan was away on diplomatic missions. Later that evening, the estate felt like a cage. Selinay was in the nursery, rocking her young son to sleep. The boy had Kaan's dark hair and a scent that promised he would one day be a powerful alpha. Suddenly, the door swung open. Kaan stood there, his scent a chaotic mess of guilt and frustration. "Selinay, we need to talk. Is it about the guest suite?" she asked, not looking up. "Melissa is already settled in. I made sure she has the finest linens, just like a servant should." Kaan flinched. "I didn't tell her to say those things to you. But you thought them, Kaan. You told your father I was a relic, an ugly wife who doesn't shine anymore." Kaan walked over, reaching out to touch her shoulder, but she flinched away. The movement hurt him more than a silver blade. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her body seemed to sag under the weight of his expectations. "I was confused," Kaan said, his voice cracking. "Baran. He made me realize that I've been blind. I don't want the rejection, Selinay. I want to fix this. You want to fix me? Selinay laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You think you can just give me a few kind words and some jewels, and the scars will disappear? You can't fix a broken mate bond with an apology, Kaan. Not when you've already invited another woman into our home to take my place. I'll send her away, Kaan promised. You can't. A new voice interrupted. Baran stood in the doorway, his expression grim. The Blackstone Alpha has already announced the alliance. If you send Melissa back now, it's an act of war. The pack isn't ready for another conflict. Kaan. Not with the rogues gathering at the southern border. Kaan looked between his father and his wife. The weight of his decisions was finally crushing him. He was the alpha, the leader, the strongest warrior, but he had compromised his pack's soul for the sake of his own vanity. There is another way, Baran said, looking directly at Selinay. The solstice hunt is in 3 days. Traditionally, the Luna leads the first charge. If Selinay can prove she still has the strength of a warrior, the pack will never accept Melissa. But if she fails, the council will force the rejection to ensure the pack's survival. Selinay stood up, carefully laying her son in his crib. She turned to face Kaan, her eyes suddenly glowing with a faint, silvery light, a remnant of the fire that should have killed her. You want a show, Kaan? Selinay asked, her voice cold and sharp. I'll give you a show, but I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the moon goddess and for my son. Kaan felt a shiver of fear, and for the first time in years, a spark of genuine awe. Selinay, the silver in your system, shifting for a hunt could kill you. Selinay walked past him, her shoulder brushing his. For a brief second, their scents mingled pine and winter rain, and the mate bond hummed with a desperate, aching melody. Then I'll die a Luna, not a shadow you cast aside, Selinay said, her hand on the doorknob. If the silver doesn't kill you during the shift, my training certainly will, the hooded figure rasped, his eyes glowing like embers in the dark. Selinay stood at the edge of the forbidden ravine, far from the polished marble floors of the Demir estate. Across from her stood Jace, a rogue who had been cast out of a northern pack years ago. Unlike the bad rogues who raided livestock, Jace was a lone wolf, surviving on instinct and a strange immunity to the very thing that was poisoning her. I didn't come here for safety, Selinay replied, her voice steady despite the damp chill of the forest. I came to find my wolf again. Kaan thinks I'm a relic. Melissa thinks I'm an omega. I need to show them that a Luna's strength isn't in her skin, but in her blood. Jace circled her, his movements fluid and silent. The silver bomb that hit you didn't just scar you. It's blocking your mind link. You can't hear Alara because the silver is shouting louder than she is. To win the solstice hunt, you have to stop fighting the pain and start using it. He threw a practice staff at her. She caught it, but the impact sent a jolt of agony through her hip, the old wound from the Great Purge. She winced, her breath hitching. Again, Jace barked. The Alpha is the strongest warrior, but the Luna is the pack's heart. If the heart stops, the pack dies. You've been playing the martyr for 3 years, letting Kaan look at you with pity. Pity is a slow-acting poison, Selinay, worse than silver. For the next 4 hours, they moved in a brutal dance of martial arts. Selinay pushed her body past its limits, her sweat mingling with the cold rain. Every time she fell, she thought of her son. She thought of the way Kaan's eyes had lingered on Melissa's flawless form. Alara, wake up, she pleaded internally. The moon goddess didn't save us from the fire just to let us fade in the shadows. Suddenly, a sharp pain flared in her chest. She fell to her knees, gasping. Her skin began to ripple, the silver burns on her back glowing a faint, angry purple. The shift is coming, Jace warned, his voice dropping an octave. Don't fight it. If you try to hold back to save yourself from the pain, the silver will shatter your bones. I can't, Selinay wheezed. It hurts too much. Then let it hurt, Jace roared. You are a child of the moon. You are blessed. Shift or die right here in the mud. With a scream that tore through the trees, Selinay finally let go. Her bones snapped and reformed, her muscles expanding as she moved from human to wolf. It wasn't the graceful transformation of a healthy shifter. It was a violent, jagged process. When the dust settled, a wolf stood in the clearing. She was smaller than a typical Luna, her fur a mottled charcoal gray, marred by the hairless streaks of her scars. But her eyes, they were a piercing, iridescent silver. "I am here," Elara's voice finally echoed in her mind, clear and fierce, "and I am hungry for justice." Jace stepped back, a rare look of respect crossing his face. "You're not an Epsilon or a Zeta, Selinay. You are something else entirely. But remember, the pack only respects what they can see. At the solstice hunt, they will see a scarred wolf. You must make them feel a queen." As dawn began to break, Selinay shifted back, her body trembling with exhaustion. She wrapped herself in her cloak and began the long trek back to the estate. She had to be in the kitchen before the alpha woke up. She had to play the part of the ugly wife for one more day. When she slipped through the back door, she found Kaan standing there. He looked like he hadn't slept. He smelled of guilt and expensive brandy. "Where have you been?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. "I went to the nursery, and you were gone." Selinay walked past him, her scent different now, sharper, carrying the metallic tang of the ravine and the musk of a wild wolf. "I was out watering the flowers, Kaan," she said, her voice like ice. "You were right. They were starting to wither." Kaan reached for her hand, but she pulled away before he could touch the new bruises on her wrists. "The council is meeting today to discuss the alliance. Melissa is demanding a seat at the table." Selinay stopped and turned to look at her husband. For the first time, she didn't look at him with the longing of a rejected mate. She looked at him like a general looks at a soldier who has forgotten his post. "Then give her a seat," Selinay said, a cold smirk touching her lips. "I hope she enjoys it, because after the solstice hunt, there won't be a chair left for her in this pack. Sign the document, Kaan, and the Black Stone Army will be at your border before the moon sets," Melissa whispered, her voice carrying a strange, vibrating frequency that made the air in the boardroom feel heavy. Kaan sat at the head of the oak table, surrounded by his betas and the elder epsilons. The air was thick with tension and the scent of old parchment. Melissa stood behind him, her hands resting on his shoulders. She was utilizing her Lycan ability to project her emotions, flooding the room with a sense of artificial urgency and desire. "The rogues are gathering," one of the betas urged, his voice sounding dazed. "We need the alliance. Selinay she is a liability now." Kaan felt a fog settling over his mind. He looked at the rejection papers. The sacred mate bond, a gift from the moon goddess, was supposed to be for life unless one party was rejected. Rejecting it was known to cause unbearable psychological pain. Yet under Melissa's influence, the pain felt like a distant echo. "Where is the Luna?" Baran's voice cut through the fog like a cold wind. The old Alpha King stood at the door, his eyes narrow. "She's likely hiding in the nursery, where she belongs," Melissa said, her eyes flashing. Suddenly, the heavy doors swung open. Selinay didn't walk in. She commanded the space. She wasn't wearing the fine silks Melissa wore. Instead, she wore her old leather training gear, the silver burns on her arms visible and unashamed. Her scent was no longer just earth and milk. It was sharp, carrying the metallic tang of a wolf who had been biting back. "I am the Luna of the Demir Pack," Selinay said, her voice ringing out without a hint of the tremors she'd shown days ago. "And no council meeting concerning the future of my bloodline happens without me." Kaan blinked, the hypnotic fog lifting as Selinay's natural scent, winter rain and pine, broke through Melissa's projection. He saw the bruises on Selinay's wrists and the fierce light in her silver eyes. "You have no seat here, Selinay," Melissa spat, her face contorting. "You're a Sigma who can't even hold her form." "A Sigma?" Selinay laughed, stepping up to the table. "A Sigma hides in small spaces when she's scared. Do I look like I'm hiding, Melissa?" Selinay slammed a map onto the table. It showed the rogue movements, but with annotations no one else had. "The rogues aren't preparing for an invasion. They're fleeing." Something is driving them out of the northern ravine. If we ally with Blackstone now, we are tying ourselves to a pack that is about to be hit by whatever they are running from. The betas leaned in, their eyes clearing. Selinay was displaying the strategic memory and intelligence usually reserved for the highest Lycan ranks. "This is a trick," Melissa hissed, her eyes glowing a feral red as her emotions shifted to pure rage, her Lycan form threatening to emerge in response to her anger. "Kaan, sign the paper." Kaan looked at Selinay. For the first time, he didn't see the ugly wife his vanity had created. He saw the warrior who had trained the werewolves of this pack in martial arts for years before the fire. He saw the woman who had sacrificed her beauty to ensure his survival. "The solstice hunt is in 48 hours, Kaan said, his voice regaining its alpha authority. "The law of the moon goddess says the Luna leads. If Selinay brings down the great stag, the rejection is void, and Melissa leaves our lands forever." Melissa growled, a sound that was half human, half beast. "And when she fails, when she collapses in the mud because her body is too broken to shift." Selinay leaned across the table, her face inches from Melissa's. "Then you can have the title, but you'll have to take it from my cold, dead hands." Kaan stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the stone floor. He felt a surge of the old bond, the ache for his mate finally returning with a vengeance. "The council is dismissed. Prepare for the hunt." As the room cleared, Melissa lingered, her eyes fixed on Selinay with murderous intent. Kaan stepped toward his wife, but she was already turning to leave. "Selinay, wait," Kaan called out. She stopped but didn't turn around. "Don't, Kaan. Don't look at me with love now because you're afraid I might win. Save your sight for the hunt. If you fall today, Selinay, don't expect me to carry you back. I'll be too busy celebrating your replacement," Melissa whispered as she checked the tension on her recurved bow. The air at the base of the Iron Mountains was freezing, the scent of pine needles and anticipation thick among the gathered Demir Pack. To the werewolves, the moon goddess's children, the solstice hunt was the ultimate test of military force and warrior spirit. The Alpha and Luna were expected to lead the charge together, proving they were the most capable warriors in the hierarchy. Selinay stood at the edge of the forest, her breath hitching as the silver burns on her back throbbed in the cold. She saw Kaan watching her, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and terror. He knew that shifting into her wolf form while silver was still concentrated in her blood could be a death sentence. "The great stag has been sighted near the ravine," Kaan announced, his alpha voice booming. "The hunt begins now." With a collective roar, the pack began to shift. Bones snapped and fur sprouted as betas, gammas, and epsilons transformed into their powerful wolf identities. Selinay closed her eyes, reaching deep into her mind to find Alara. "Now, Alara, show them the heart of a queen," Selinay commanded. The shift was a jagged, agonizing process. Because of the silver fire damage, her transformation was not as fluid as the others, but as she emerged in her charcoal gray form, her silver eyes glowed with a feral intensity. Beside her, Melissa shifted into a sleek, white Lycan form, her larger size and unique fur pattern radiating a sense of superiority. The race was on. Selinay tore through the underbrush, her paws hitting the frozen ground with rhythmic precision. She could feel the silver in her veins fighting her, trying to weaken her muscles, but she pushed through the pain. In the distance, the great stag, a massive beast blessed by the moon, bolted toward the high cliffs. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the air. A silver-tipped arrow hissed past Selinay's ear, grazing her shoulder. She let out a pained yelp, the silver making her feel instantly sluggish and weak. She looked back. Melissa was trailing slightly behind, a second arrow already notched in her human hybrid grip. "She's trying to kill us." "Selinay," Alara's voice snarled in her mind. Selinay didn't slow down. She used the pain to sharpen her focus, a technique she had learned from Jace. She veered sharply to the left, disappearing into a dense thicket of wolfsbane. While the poisonous plant was dangerous to most, she knew the terrain better than anyone. She circled back, appearing above Melissa on a rocky ledge. With a powerful leap, Selinay bypassed Melissa entirely, her smaller, agile frame allowing her to navigate the treacherous cliffside faster than the bulky Lycan. She saw the stag. It was cornered at the edge of the ravine. Selinay launched herself through the air. As she mid-flight, she felt the bond with Kaan surge. He was watching from below, his wolf howling in encouragement. She sank her teeth into the stag's neck. Her bite carried the force of a Luna who had everything to lose. The beast fell. Silence descended over the forest. Selinay stood over the prize, her gray fur stained with blood and her silver eyes fixed on the pack members as they emerged from the trees. Kaan approached in his massive black form, bowing his head in a gesture of absolute submission to his mate. Melissa stepped into the clearing, her white fur bristling with rage. This proves nothing. She's still a scarred, broken creature. Selinay shifted back into her human form, standing tall despite the silver-tipped arrow still protruding from her shoulder. She looked at the council, then at Melissa. A warrior is defined by the battles she survives, not the ones she avoids, Selinay said, her voice echoing through the valley. Kaan stepped beside her, his hand covering the wound on her shoulder, his touch finally warm and filled with the protective fire of a mate who had found his sight. He turned to Melissa, his voice a low, dangerous growl. The hunt is over, Melissa. Leave our lands before I let my Luna decide your fate. I spent so long looking at the scars that I forgot they were the armor that saved my life, Kaan whispered, his voice thick with a regret that no alpha title could mask. The great hall of the Demir Pack was filled with the scent of roasting meat and cedarwood as the pack gathered for the post-hunt feast. The class hierarchy was on full display, with betas and gammas sharing stories of the day's victory. But tonight, the atmosphere was different. The rigid focus on perfection had been replaced by a deep, vibrating respect for the woman sitting at the head of the table. Selinay sat beside Kaan, her posture regal. She no longer wore the oversized sweaters of a servant or the simple linen of an Omega. She wore a gown of silver silk that mirrored the color of her wolf's eyes. The silver-tipped arrow wound on her shoulder had been treated, and the proximity to her fated mate was finally allowing her wolf, Alara, to channel the chakra energy needed for true healing. The pack has never been this unified, Baran said, leaning in from Kaan's other side. They don't see an ugly wife, Kaan. They see a Luna who survived the silver fire and still brought down the great stag. Kaan looked at Selinay. As their eyes met, the mate bond hummed, a sacred connection designated by the moon goddess that made them ache for one another. He realized that his father was right. He had lost his sight, blinded by the shallow lure of a younger, unscarred face. I don't deserve you, Kaan said, his hand finding hers under the table. You don't? Selinay agreed, though a small, genuine smile touched her lips. But the moon goddess doesn't give us what we deserve. She gives us what we need to grow. The celebration reached its peak as the pack began the ritual of the second chance. Kaan stood, raising a chalice of wine. Today, we recognize that strength is not found in a flawless coat or a young face. It is found in the heart that bleeds for its pack. Selinay is my mate, my Luna, and the true alpha of my soul. The hall erupted in a rhythmic howl, a sound of gregarious wolves acknowledging their leader. Selinay stood beside him, her presence projecting a calm, fluid aura. The silver in her blood was still there, but it was no longer a cage. It was a part of her story. As the feast wound down, Kaan led Selinay to the balcony overlooking the territory. The full moon hung large and luminous, a reminder that they were all children of the same goddess. Melissa is gone, Kaan said softly. The Blackstone Alliance is dead. We will face the rogues on our own terms, with you leading the strategy. Selinay leaned her head against his shoulder. The tremors in her hands had stopped. We aren't just a pack, Kaan. We are a home. And as long as we look at each other with love, the flowers here will never wither. Kaan pulled her closer, his wolf, barking, finally at peace. He knew the road to fully repairing their bond would take time, but for the first time in years, he wasn't looking for something better. He was exactly where he was meant to be. I can finally see you, Selinay, and you are the most beautiful thing I have ever known, Kaan said, his voice a promise for the future.